Welcome to Fibroid Awareness Month 2025. This segment is titled, Could This Be Caused by Menopause? Wow, we have a lot to discuss today. I hope you'll learn a lot and have a lot of takeaways. We look forward to your input and your questions. And we have an amazing guest who you soon will meet. The menopause journey is just really challenging. And the Fibroid Foundation launched focused solely on fibroids. And we soon came to realize that it's the stigma behind menstruation and menopause that is really the barrier to our community members having the solutions that they need. Enter menopause. When I entered the menopause journey, I was shocked that I was completely unprepared. We work with some of the top experts in the country, and I had no idea what I was about to experience. My menopause journey started with staggered hot flashes and shoulder blade pain. And none of the shoulder blade pain actually started first, and it was not flagged as a menopause symptom. And I thought to myself, if I, with my access to medical information on menstrual health and menopause, was completely unprepared for my menopause journey, what are other women and menstruators experiencing? That lack of answers led me to start a fact-finding mission that felt oddly reminiscent of the launch of the Fibroid Foundation. And I thought to myself, how could that be? So today we're going to discuss menopause and try to answer some of those questions. Our guest today is Dr. LaReesa Ferdinand. She's a women's health expert, hormone expert, integrative health coach, and consultant with nearly 2 decades of experience in women's health as a board-certified OBGYN physician. Dr. LaReesa is the owner-founder of Thrive Beyond Wellness. She was named one of the top OBGYN physicians in the Orlando Family Magazine, which is quite an accolade. She has a passion to improve healthcare delivery for women that extends from direct patient care to medical expertise in the emerging femtech market. Dr. LaReesa, welcome to Fibroid Awareness Month 2025.
Thank you for having me, Sateria. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm very much looking forward to this conversation.
I'm excited as well. And one of the things that really spoke to me about your area of expertise is the integrative approach that you really focus on and are just really steeped in terms of experience. And I found that in my fibroid journey, an integrative approach served me best. And I found that in my menopause journey, an integrative approach has served me best as well. Uh, why do you think that combination is so important?
Honestly, at this point, because I know you're on a lot of algorithms like I am, right? The minute you start searching for something, like all these things pop up. And so I tend to think of it, what is a woman putting in her Google search bar? What is she putting in like actively? And it has to do with a lot of symptoms that she's experiencing and how to kind of fill in that blank. And honestly, I'm finding more and more that where the reason why I started my practice was being in the traditional arena for so long, always seeing the opportunities of education, the larger system being broken, and how can we blend some of the things that I trained for, that I got additional education with, to help meet women where they are. And that became, what does the quality of life look for you? What does that impact have on you in this moment? And sometimes you want to go beyond a pill, beyond a prescription, beyond like, what does this look like? So, not only looking at it from the blend of modern medicine and holistic wellness is how I approach integrative health, but going beyond the symptom, looking at your body as a true system that needs to work together. And so that's where the synergy of really understanding if you're searching based on certain symptoms, how do we reset your hormones, your body, your metabolism, your mindset, and curtail it to a more personalized journey and approach? And therefore, you're going to get better outcomes. You're going to be more informed women because I don't know what algorithm you're on at this point. At this point, everything is blending in. You're not sure what what attributes to you. And it really has helped with education, making more informed decisions that make sense for the person. And most importantly, that season of life. And that's what we're going to be talking about today a lot is this season of life in that menopausal journey.
That's insightful because I think there's a lot of focus on the uterus,
Hmm.
and there are many other dynamics at play.
Hmm.
Our bodies are very, very unique and very specialized in the way that they function. So, your point resonates deeply with me.
Good.
And we recently launched the Co-Equal study to look at the psychological impact of fibroids, not menopause in that case, but
Mhm.
I think your point is well taken that there's a lot more to consider. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind me interjecting,
Of course.
I find myself because I started bringing people in who were training physicians or mid-levels, and I really love part of what I did gain in my medical school education and training that I remember I had an advisor, a mentor that told me if you don't say anything and just listen, your patient's going to tell you what they need. You're going to be able to come up with a more treatment management plan that will be more of a dialogue and bi-directional. And so when I'm able to do that, it becomes, as I've done this 20 years plus now, it's filling in the blanks for women and what that looks like. Because quality of life could be lack of self-confidence because XYZ, or I don't feel comfortable in my clothes, to I changed my clothes 3 times today because of something that they've experienced. So that is like the deeper level of understanding, even as a practitioner, that we need to come to the table and be less biased about what people's experience and spectrum of symptoms can be from shoulder blade pain to something else.
That's so accurate. And women are the experts in their bodies. And
Mhm.
so I don't think we always realize it was definitely a learning curve for me of what information I could contribute to
Mhm.
my own care. And that dialogue with the shared decision making with the patient revealing their goals for care and their experience and really just collaborating, if you will, with the physician who has the expertise to know how to treat those symptoms is so important.
Absolutely.
So during perimenopause, periods can be very erratic. We hear this all the time. Could those symptoms be caused by menopause or the perimenopause transition, the heavy periods?
Yes, and I like how we're starting to differentiate because that terminology of using menopause is understanding that that's the absence of a cycle for 12 months. And this is excluding conversations of women who have had hysterectomies, depending on if they were still menstruating before. And we'll get to that in a little bit later. But that transitional period tends to be the biggest component because this is based on a lot of symptoms that women can experience, um, that menstrual type bleeding, the heavy flow. And what I find myself asking is, okay, give me a little bit more detail. Meaning, are you wearing different color clothes a certain time of month because you're about to bleed out your white clothing? Are you in a maxi pad with wings? Or are you in the overnights? Because a lot of times we're normalizing certain bleeding or experiencing that we're having, and you have to start putting that visual what that looks like because many women haven't had an ultrasound since childbirth or early on, and before they enter this time period. And so with this transition of you have fluctuating estrogen, declining progesterone, which are some of the two pivotal hormones at play, even with women with a history of fibroids, tends to be this biological transition as well as these hormonal fluctuations. And so when it presents to clinicians like myself, it could be heavy bleeding, it could be scant bleeding, it could be more painful bleeding. A lot of that could be judged on even if someone has had IVF before, because oftentimes if they've been under certain therapies that might have put them in a more premature of what we call ovarian failure or reduction of the hormones that would usually attribute to a normal reproductive cycle. So a lot of those things definitely do contribute to what that overall picture runs into. But like you said, being inclined to write or track or notice those type of things and notice, okay, what we're going to communicate with our physician during this transitional period. Oftentimes, I'm seeing women with bleeding abnormalities, but how they're defining them. And a lot of that could be based on really putting a picture and description of what that looks like and how it's impacted their daily living and their quality of life. And that becomes very essential of something that's naturally going to happen, which is that transitional change. But the years of duration and severity for certain women, especially African American women, could be very significant, and how that approach, how the dialogue and conversation comes about, and even how the management of treatment.
I'm smiling because the specificity of your answer
Mhm.
is just so wonderful. And it really shows the care that you provide your patients.
Mhm.
And I hope our listeners glean from your response what level of care they can experience when their provider really understands what their lifestyle is like and what adjustments they've made to their lifestyle and how to really think about what is normal or if we have normalized a particular experience like the size of the pads, because I know that was me at some point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You mentioned hysterectomy, and community members who've had a hysterectomy, I've heard it many times, often wake up in recovery with unexpected symptoms like hot flashes. Could those be caused by menopause?
Yes, and I think a good way to level this conversation is the conversation that needs to happen before you enter the OR.
Mhm.
So let's get back to basics. So hysterectomy within itself is considered the removal of the uterus. That pre-op conversation should also go into the ovaries. What's unique about the female reproductive tract between the uterus, the cervix, the vagina, the vulva, the fallopian tubes, the ovaries, they all can impact your health a little differently if one of them or some of them or all of them are removed in some way, or you have some kind of pathology that causes a differentiation. So hysterectomy is the removal of the uterus. If you have your ovaries removed, that's going to put you in what we call a surgical menopause. So that impact of some of the constellation of symptoms, where if you're naturally going through the transition, it may feel like fluctuations, and that spectrum is big. I've seen women like, yeah, I stopped my period and yeah, I'm good. Like I don't have any symptoms at all, to those who are suffering for years on end with severity and frequency. So at the time of when you're going to sleep for a surgery and waking up, that surgical menopause can happen just with them technically removing your brainchild, your ovaries, because the brain is talking to the ovaries and the ovaries are communicating to the lining of the uterus. So it's a three-part communication. And with that, with the ovaries being removed, it can definitely put someone in a surgical menopause where a lot of the constellation of those symptoms can be right on the bat. And 60 to 70% of that time is going to be a vasomotor symptom like hot flashes, night sweats. Some people may have a spectrum of, I just feel a lot more fatigued than I thought I would post-surgery, to just feeling off. A lot. One of the biggest things that people will put even in my intake form is, I just don't feel like myself. That's not in my medical book. I'm sorry, that's not. But if you're not listening for that, then you're already off track with someone, because that person has been living with themselves, waking up with themselves every day, and they just feel off, don't feel like themselves. So that is, I mean, if I could put that as a symptom under that, I would, but it's definitely something that's projected in that dialogue. So understanding the difference between what is happening and having appropriate counseling of, oh, okay, even if one or both ovaries are going to be removed, what are the implications and what is the treatment or approach if that is the case? Because the uterus is just removing the bleeding or the pelvic pain or that other symptomatic component of removing fibroids, since we're also initiating that conversation too.
That's incredibly helpful too.
Mhm.
And can we go back to brainchild for a minute? Because
Okay.
it is a fantastic descriptor.
Uh-huh.
And I'm wondering if would you just kind of walk our listeners through
Mhm.
where the hormones originate and just kind of how the brain is a pivotal part of that perimenopause to menopause transition? Like what is happening there?
Okay, absolutely. So first of all, the brain is one of the most sexiest organs you have. Let me just tell you that. And it's because it's mysterious at the same time of that we're still learning about it. But you have some key glands in there. The hypothalamus is what we call the pituitary. I'm not going to give you a whole science lesson. We're going to keep it very practical and something digestible as well. But a lot of that circuitry of hormone distribution starts there, and it also has what we call the hormones or messengers released there that also has a circuitry of feedback that talks to our ovarian cells. And then also from that communication, our uterus may respond. So let's go back to um, um, our normal menstrual cycle. Each month, we know that we bleed, but there's certain events of estrogen that happens, and progesterone. Will simplify it to those two hormones, but there are other different hormones, communicators, messengers that even interplay with that communication. And so that can amplify whether we have more ovulatory pain because of imbalances there, whether we have more responsive to bleeding or irregular bleeding. And especially, I'm talking to those women, even though we have identified the concentration of this conversation, but many women who are going to be listening to this have had some evidence of infertility or endometriosis or even PCOS, polycystic ovarian. So I'm speaking to you in those terms because those have to do with this communication signal of what's going on. Number two, hormones are sexy as well. They're messengers, they're repair, they help with communicating to different target tissues and organs in our body. And so therefore response. So the key thing that's important, especially when it comes to symptoms and how it makes you feel, they're traveling in your bloodstream. They're traveling on little Ubers in your bloodstream, like little proteins that are taking them to different target areas. So, what you eat, what your body is impacted with inside that bloodstream can impact those hormones. So, therefore, can impact the spectrum of symptoms that can occur. So, I tend to like to put things in kind of practical terms too, because that plays the part of why nutrition and lifestyle makes a difference. Because even on a genetic level, there's a certain way that even your genes are going to be expressed based on the expression of what's in the environment. So, going back to the brain, thus trauma, things that happen that incline that rhythm of even the nervous system can impact how your symptoms in menopause can be, or in perimenopause or during this transition, how your quality of life, because you may not have the support, or it may have been an experience that you had with a physician 10 years ago. That's what I see. Like, I haven't been to the doctor since he XYZ did something to me and I just don't trust. And so that can really play a part with even how that psychologic trauma can impede on that circuitry of communication and message pathway of what your experiences can be in the spectrum of symptoms and the spectrum of what your period looks like, the spectrum of how you feel, all of that. That's why I love to talk about system, right? And helping people understand there is a system of connecting the dots even beyond your symptoms. And it's going to make a difference of whether you feel okay versus good versus optimal, and whether something is normal versus optimal. So, anyway, so hopefully that I added some different color to make sure people understand where I'm coming from, because sometimes it's beyond an IG reel, it's beyond, like a like and a comment. Some people's experience is deeper than the symptom itself. They've been plagued with certain things for a while and they really don't know how to address them.
I am learning so much. So throughout my whole life, when I ovulated,
Hmm.
I felt it.
Hmm.
And it's interesting to me because you described why that happens, and I had never heard that before. And also, we get feedback that stress
Hmm.
is a catalyst for heavy periods or for other symptoms through perimenopause and menopause, but we're not always told what is taking place specifically.
Hmm.
And your explanation helps us to really understand how those body systems that you described are really all, there's an interplay
Hmm.
that they all relate to one another and nothing is happening in isolation. And it's so important to really understand that.
Yes.
And I think too, just kind of stepping just back for a minute, the entire menopausal journey is a system of a lot of different things at play. I
Hmm.
think that's why it's such just so disruptive because nothing is happening in isolation. There are so many dynamics occurring at the same time, and women and menstruators are trying to adjust to, one symptom and then find out that it may be caused by this, or it may be caused by diet, or it may be managed by exercise. And there's so many ways in which we adapt. I feel healthier
Hmm.
and more in tune with my body than ever. But it definitely was a process that was not easy. So I'm hopeful, and I think that you're going to help a lot of people today because this your explanations. Just really appreciate Dr. LaReesa. It's
Good.
it's very very insightful.
Good.
Um, so you mentioned sleep disruptions. Could this be caused by menopause?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So sleep is sexy too. All right. So it's the new sexy. You hear me say that. So absolutely. And about 60 to 70% of women are going to notice this sleep disruption. It could be difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, bladder issues or problems that become more prevalent in a menopause, which could be due to different things from an overactive bladder to, even for your audience, an anterior fibroid that you've known that been there for a while, but for some reason that could be impending because your bladder is right in front of your uterus. So if you have one that's there, you might end up with more bladder anatomic, just the effect of the pressure on it. Or these executive meetings in the middle of the morning at 2 or 3 o'clock that you did not call. So a lot of that has to do with the decline in progesterone, the peaks and troughs of fluctuations that are happening with estrogen, nutritional deficiencies, other things that impact us in our nervous system. I'm an OBGYN, board certified trained, and when we follow the fetal heart rate of a pregnant mom, we describe it in terms of not only protecting the oxygenation of the brain or understanding that heart rate is a connection to the nervous system. And so there's really no other time that we're monitoring the nervous system as well, other than how people may project their symptoms or what they're experiencing day to day. And so sleep disruptions are very important and something what I consider part of my foundational treatment, because I honestly feel if I can help someone with their sleep, I'm already plugging into weight management. I'm already plugging into brain fog. I'm already plugging into just feeling more energetic that day, menstrual improvements. Like overall, it's going to help you consolidate memory, be more creative, show up like you want to. So to put or add that into your toolbox or your health stack of better health outcomes, to me, it's a non-negotiable.
That's I learned a lot again. I use a magnesium butter that I
Mhm.
finally stumbled on that's very helpful for sleep. So, uh, yeah, there are lots of tools that we can utilize, but we just need someone like you to tell us uh, how to utilize them and what to, just kind of look into. And we know that there are sometimes less talked about symptoms like vaginal dryness or ringing in the ears, which I experienced, or plantar fasciitis. Could
Mhm.
these be caused by menopause?
Yes, yes. There's a large interplay of all of your symptoms when it comes to this transitional change. And then when you finally go through it, where the spectrum or the variation of symptoms do lie. Another strange zebra is hot mouth. Some people experience hot mouth.
Hmm.
Another one that people may not sense that is a component to it, they get more food sensitivities. Like noticing changes in their gut health, noticing like I eat this and I feel like I've either broken out or I'm more nauseous or, those type of things. So all of that goes into understanding that your hormones have receptors everywhere and respond differently during this transitional change. And you mentioned stress before, where you're getting more of these metabolic changes on top of it that can be impacted through stress. And stress looks a different way. You need stress to perform, but at the same time, it's the balance of understanding the key networks of our nervous system together. And we have to be more intentional of how we guard that in our response to certain environments.
Yes, guarding is so important.
Mhm.
Self-care, yes. If you're not sure what your symptoms, if your symptoms indicate menopause and you haven't been to a provider
Mhm.
yet, what should your next step be?
Yeah, let me do some good bulleted practical tips that I always give. So number one, don't schedule a wellness visit. Schedule a problem visit with your doctor, especially if you're within an insurance-based model. That's important because there's certain things that are targeted within that wellness visit and all the stuff that you've been Google searching or whatever you want to address, and it may end up in this next visit. So go in with a more problem visit. You can get your pap smear and some other stuff. Sometimes it's just having the conversation and getting the road started. So that's important. Another key thing is tracking what's going on. I love like new apps that help you track, or you can go old school, write it on your calendar or put it in your notes. There are different applications now that can be utilized. And be prepared with your questions. A lot of times I didn't have enough time with my physician. And the environment of that visit comes with anxiety, no telling you had to clock in out of work, fight traffic just to get there, and then you never know, your physician could have seen like 10 patients before you and one went off on them, like so it's curtailing that to be a very good opportune time for you, even from all the medications you've been on, supplements that you're using. One of the most powerful questions I ask is what's working and what's not working? Because most people have started to try something before they sat in front of me. And so when you clue into, these practical tips, that's going to arm you for a better dialogue. And then if you realize that that's not the best provider for you, find someone else that could be part of your board of directors of your health, because it may not be the same doctor that you've had, it may be someone else. The true love of it is to find something that fits for you. I can truly say I love what I do. I'm in my ministry, I'm in my jam. I mean, like it brings joy. But that's because I know that I'm constantly learning. It doesn't stop even in this time, and I think if communicating that with patients even gives them a resolve of, hey, this is somebody who is willing to be on the journey with me. So those are just some key things that to be prepared for your next health provider visit.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Uh, After the menopausal symptoms, if you've had a DEXA scan already and it's indicated brittle bones or you've had a fracture, which many women mention, could this be caused by menopause?
Yes, yes. And that goes into the conversation of looking at risk factors. So most of the time, women are not getting a DEXA scan if they haven't had any risk factors, which meaning a history of a fracture or a history of a family member going through osteoporosis early, chronic smoker or chronic abuse or relative risk factors associated with that. Not until they're 65, and that's just based on what we've come up with screening or based on when they can get it covered with their insurance. But there's actually different ways that you can get a DEXA scan outside of that. And that's another conversation for another day. But the bone is it's constantly rebuilding and remodeling. So with menopause, there's a change in how your body's remodeling bone from more potential breakdown than build. All right. And those things have constantly been at an interplay as you've grown, even from, starting your menstrual cycle and on. So even before that, technically. So what I mean is by that, in summary, is that with the decline of estrogen and those receptors being on the bone as well, and other key hormones and growth factors at play, that remodeling it is off. And so that disruption of that remodeling can put a lot of women at more risk of getting a fracture or having more low bone density, where hormone therapy can definitely attribute to better bone health because you have better remodeling sequence of build and an appropriate breakdown and not more of one versus the other. So it's an important key factor to even if you don't understand your history, that it can really impact how long you can stay independent, functional, and mobile. And that's what it's about, like, hey, am I able to still be as independent as I want for years on end? Because if a woman gets a fracture, that can be very debilitating, as well as decrease her outlook and how she functions in day-to-day life.
Very, very informative. Dr. LaReesa, where can our listeners find you?
Yes, so definitely if you're in the Florida region or Florida area, I am actively seeing patients at my practice, Thrive Beyond Wellness, where we blend modern medicine with holistic wellness. Other than that, you can definitely catch me at Dr. Larissa, DrLareesa on Instagram or LinkedIn, Dr. Larissa Ferdinand, MD. So in different venues as we are having these conversations.
Dr. LaReesa, thank you so much. This has been incredibly informative, and I so appreciate your time with us today. And thank you for celebrating Fibroid Awareness Month with us. It's been a
Thanks for having
pleasure.
me. Thanks for having me. And congratulations and kudos for not only being an advocate, but getting there and rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. So we do appreciate you as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, no problem.
We truly appreciate you sharing Fibroid Awareness Month with us. We're here to support you in menstrual health from your first period and beyond the menopause transition. If you have menstrual health concerns, you don't have to navigate that journey alone. Please visit fibroidfoundation.org to let us know how we can help. All of the videos from this year's Fibroid Awareness Month and all prior programs are available on our website. Thanks again for joining us today. Take care and be well.